You're not in a hurry tonight. The world has quieted, and you've done enough. Your body softens, your breath slows, and now your mind begins to wander, not forward, not backward, but down, into the soft folds of history where stone meets, soil and silence. These are not the temples that glow in guidebooks, not the wonders with gift shops or crowds. These are the quiet ones, the ones that sank without protest, that leaned gently into swamps or dust or rivers, and simply let time forget them. No drama, no collapse, just a slow, graceful vanishing. But even in their silence, they remember. Tonight, you'll lie beside buried steps and moss-covered altars. You'll walk through broken gateways that never quite shut. You'll listen to walls that don't speak, but somehow still say everything. There's nothing you need to learn, nothing you need to solve. Just breathe and drift with the dust. Let the stones tell you a story without saying a word. Let's begin with the first temple that disappeared, but never truly left. Asterisk, you arrive in a place where time walks barefoot. The air is warm and smells like rain that hasn't fallen yet. Rich, green, slow. Somewhere in Cambodia, not far from where the land folds into itself in vines and shadows, you step off a narrow path and onto stone softened by moss. The jungle doesn't push you out. It accepts you, just as it accepted the temple stone. By stone, root by root, you are not the first to arrive late. The temple has been waiting quietly, letting trees move in like old friends who don't ask permission. This is Taproom, a temple once built for knowledge, for worship, for legacy. And then, eventually, for none of those things, it's not a ruin. That word is too loud. It's more like a place that remembered how to rest. When the Khmer Empire fell silent, and footsteps no longer echoed through its galleries, the jungle simply filled the space, slowly, without argument. It didn't destroy the temple, it tucked it in. You walk softly between crumbling walls, massive. Fig trees grow from the ceilings now, their roots draping over doorways like sleeping serpents. The architecture is not gone, just gently obscured, like someone rearranged the sky to give it more shade. Light filters through leaves in beams that move like breath. You don't need to speak. You're here to witness the quiet. The temple was built in the 12th century by King Jayavarman VII, a name once spoken by hundreds of voices, now resting in the hush of stone. Tar Prom was a monastery, a sanctuary of learning and reflection. In its time, it held nearly 80,000 people, monks, dancers, farmers, scribes. They moved through these very courtyards. Their hands polished these walls. They lit lamps, carried offerings, whispered verses. None of that sound remains, but if you close your eyes, you can feel the echo pressing gently against your ribs. In most places, history resists nature. Fortresses fight vines, roofs fight rain. But not here. Tarprom let the jungle come in. It never tried to win. Trees pushed through foundations, roots curled under floors. The temple did not shatter. It shifted, like an old man giving up his chair to the wind. This wasn't collapse. It was coexistence. Some trees are taller than the towers now. Their trunks rise from rooftops. Their branches hold birds who never knew there was anything else below. The roots don't crush the stone, they cradle it, twisting through gaps and framing windows like fingers around a memory. Every doorway is a painting. Every corridor is a pause. There are no right angles here anymore, only softened curves, slow bends, and a suggestion that time doesn't need to be corrected. you wander deeper inside. In some chambers, the light disappears completely and the air cools. Here, carvings of Apsara dancers, celestial spirits, sway on the walls, their features worn smooth by years of leaf shadow. You feel their presence more than you see. They are not frozen. They are resting. The temple does not demand your awe. It offers it like a pillow. For centuries, no one came. The temple was not lost, just left alone. Local people always knew it was there. It was the outside world that forgot. When European archaeologists rediscovered Tarprom in the 19th century, they found it in its full dream state, half asleep under vines, unmoved by history's urgency. Unlike other temples that were cleared and scrubbed and restored, Tarprom was left as they found it, preserved in its beautiful surrender. You sit on a fallen stone and lean your back against a tree older than memory. Insects buzz in low rhythms. Somewhere, a bird calls once, then chooses silence. The jungle does not ask you to hurry. The temple does not ask you to understand. This was a place of worship, then a place of forgetting. Now, it's simply a place to be. You run your hand along a wall carved with script Sanskrit, once clear and sharp, now softened into ridges that feel like braille for the earth. You can't read the words. No one really can anymore, not completely. They're stories, folded into another time, sealed under layers of moss and meaning. But you don't need to know what they say. The message is still here. What is held in silence still matters at some point. You notice the trees aren't just growing on the temple. They're part of it now. Roots form the frames of doors. Branches prop up broken lintels. Nature didn't take over, it moved in, politely, like a friend who stays the night and waters your plants. You look up. The canopy is full of green light, and in its softness, the outline of stone domes still pushes toward the sky. Tarprom does not try to explain itself. It has been explained enough. Now it rests, and so do you. You let your breathing match the slow swing of vines. You close your eyes and picture the temple, not as it was, but as it is. Half tree, half memory, fully still. You are sitting inside something that knows how to be forgotten without being gone. Something that reminds you not all things must be preserved to be meaningful. Let the stone stay warm with roots. Let the rain soak the old script. Let the silence be the final offering. You are not here to understand the architecture. You are here to fall asleep inside it. Sleep now where the jungle came gently. Sleep where prayers became moss. Sleep with the trees that learned to speak temple, and the temples that stopped asking questions. The desert begins before your feet do. It's not just sand. It's an ancient stillness stretched wide, too wide for memory, too quiet to hurry. You are somewhere in southern Iraq, where the land used to kiss rivers that shifted over centuries like dreams turning on their sides. Once, this place was a cradle. Now it is a flat hush of dust and cracked clay. But underneath it, just a little below where the sun scalds the earth, a temple sleeps beneath the weight of forgotten water. This is Eridu, and beneath it lies a ziggurat that once reached upward in steps and now lies pressed into sediment, like a thought you meant to finish. It is one of the earliest cities we've ever found, perhaps the first. But that word first is loud and sharp. This place doesn't feel like it ever needed to be first. It just needed to be you walk. The perimeter of the mound, your shoes crunching against salt-encrusted soil, nothing rises. It all settles. The remains of the ziggurat lie under your feet, layered in ancient mud, submerged not in water, but in time. This isn't the grand ziggurat of yore with reconstructed bricks and Tor signs. This is something quieter, a ziggurat that let itself be buried, not ruined, built to honor Enki, god of water, wisdom, and creation. The ziggurat of Eridu was likely the center of prayer in a time when people still spoke to gods in the direction of wells and clouds, not cathedrals or thunder. Thousands of years before the pyramids, this was already old, but it never screamed for attention. It was built low, its tiers rising gently, mud bricks softened by the heat of its own making. You kneel and press your palm to the earth. Beneath you are layers, clay kill-fired remnants, shells of reeds once used to reinforce walls. They say Enki's temple here was rebuilt 17 times, not expanded or glorified, just repaired, renewed, respected. There was something sacred in its humility. You can feel that still. It does not beg to be uncovered. It simply remains. You try to picture it, a small rising structure, perhaps painted with white gypsum, shimmering in sunlight now long gone. Priests would have climbed it slowly, carrying offerings of fish, grain, or cool water in shallow bowls. The wind would have whispered across the plain, carrying the breath of rituals you'll never know. People believed that wisdom rose from the deep, not from conquest. They believed the gods listened from below. That's what this temple teaches best, not ambition, but returning. Like water finds the lowest place, this ziggurat didn't try to outlast the sky. It let itself become part of the riverbanks. When floods came, it didn't resist. When drought hardened the soil, it waited. When memory shifted elsewhere, it went still. Not lost, not angry, just silent. Excavators found it only after much of it had turned to silt. They uncovered a staircase leading nowhere, walls that crumbled in their hands, foundation stones that bore the faintest marks of design, as though someone had meant for you to remember, but not to explain. There are no grand carvings left, no gold, no thunder in its bones, just clay, simple, soft, shaped by hands. Now gone, and isn't that the point? The deeper you go, the less you find, and the more you feel. You sit on a low rise near what would have been the temple's edge. The sun begins to fall, staining the sky with tired fire. Somewhere far off, a shepherd walks with animals that don't know they're passing sacred ground. The wind picks up a little. The air smells of salt and sunburnt roots. You close your eyes and hear the echo of a city that never demanded to be a city. It just needed a place to put its gods. The people who lived here believed in cycles, not in pyramids or permanence, in rising water and then receding water, in temples that could be remade with each generation, as if prayer itself needed to be relearned, not remembered. And when the time came to let go, they did not cling. They allowed the soil to settle. You imagine the last priest, alone maybe, or maybe not, walking through the ziggurat one final time, placing a palm on the bricks, murmuring something for no one to hear. Maybe there was no ritual for closure. Maybe closure isn't the point. The point is this: the temple is still there. Beneath you, beneath layers of wind, drought, flood, silt, war, forgetting, and more wind. It never went away, it just moved lower. It gave in, and now you rest above it. The stars begin to show. You lie back and let the coolness of evening rise into your lungs. You are not on a monument, you are on a memory. One that doesn't need to speak to be understood. One that listens better than most living things do. Let the ziggurat sleep where it chose to sleep. Let the prayers stay buried. Let the god of water keep watch in the silence beneath silence. You do not need to uncover anything. You are already resting in the truth of it. Sleep now, above the temple that never asked to be found. Sleep with the bricks that forgot how to rise. Sleep with the gods who whisper best from underground. Asterisk, you arrive under a sky so wide, it feels like silence itself. The horizon stretches in every direction, not empty, just still. Like the desert has been holding its breath for 1,000 years, and doesn't see the point in exhaling just yet. The air is dry, sun-baked and brittle, as if the wind itself has turned to parchment. Somewhere behind you, the Nile has wandered off in another direction, but here, on this plateau above the river's curve, only stone remembers where water once flowed. You've come to Saqqara, where echoes linger longer than footsteps and temples. Whisper things even they barely remember. You walk slowly through a desert brushed in gold and bone. The dust doesn't blow so much as it settles gently over everything. On your shoulders, in your hair, across the tops of walls that were once sharp, but now bow slightly, as if bending forward to rest. Ahead rises the step pyramid of Djoser, its 6 limestone tiers layered like a question no one finished asking. This is not just a tomb. It is one of the oldest major stone structures in the world. But even that fact has grown tired from being repeated. You don't need a plaque to feel the weight of age. You only need your shadow stretching longer than you expect. Across courtyards that haven't heard prayers in centuries, the pyramid rises quietly, not like a mountain, not like a cathedral, but like a story being retold in pieces. Its creator, Imhotep, was not a conqueror or a pharaoh, but an architect, a thinker, a man who looked at sand and stone and imagined something sacred stitched into geometry. What he built here for King Djoser was not only a tomb, but a temple complex, a ceremonial mirror of the heavens where rituals echoed through stone halls and voices carried between columns like incense in wind. Now, those voices are gone, but the echo remains. You step through the entrance colonnade, a hallway of stone pillars, tall and close, like ribs inside the belly of some ancient god. The light filters in only at angles, striping the floor with silence. Your footsteps don't land with sound, but with suggestion. You are not walking through a ruin. You are walking through a memory palace, one that no longer corrects your understanding, but lets you make up your own meanings. The walls are bare in places, but if you look closely, you see traces of carvings, falcons, lotus blooms, a reed pressed forever into stone, not decoration, orientation, markers for the sacred, a way to tell the gods which way was up. But now the gods have gone quiet, and the stone has stopped listening. Or perhaps it listens better now than ever, precisely because no one is trying to be heard. You move toward the court where rituals were once performed, kings repeating, sacred races to renew the land. It's vast and flat and empty. You imagine the ceremonies, dancers, priests, the sound of sandals striking polished stone, the flicker of torches held high. And yet now, the space doesn't beg to be filled. It welcomes your solitude like a temple that finally learned the value of being unseen. Above you, the sky remains clear and indifferent. A bird glides in a long arc, not circling, just passing through. The heat clings to you, but not oppressively. It settles, just like the dust, just like the pyramid, just like history. You sit on a fallen block near the edge of the inner wall. your body casting a soft shadow over hieroglyphs worn to the faintest whisper. You run your fingers along the grooves. You can't read them, most can't. But your hand recognizes the motion, the curve of a symbol made with intention. The press of story into surface. The desert wind stirs, and you hear it, the softest echo, not of words, but of space, remembering shape, not a ghost, not a mystery. Just a feeling, like the stone still holding breath from when it mattered. This temple doesn't mourn its silence. It doesn't cry out for discovery or pity. It absorbs. It has learned that echoes last longer when no one interrupts them. It doesn't need tourists or documentaries or restoration. It needs sky. It needs sand. It needs time and you. You lie down on the stone, warm from sun but cool beneath the surface. You watch the pyramids stretch into the sky like a hand no longer trying to grasp. It was meant to reach toward something. Toward stars perhaps, or toward permanence. But permanence is a trick. And this temple knows better now. It does not reach, it rests. You breathe deeply, you let your weight melt into stone. You let your thoughts dissolve like chalk in wind. You imagine the priests of Saqqara, their chants, long faded, their names long forgotten. But they stood here, they breathed here, their sandals stirred this very dust. And now it is your turn. Not to understand, just to be still. Let the echoes stay in the walls. Let the hieroglyphs fade gently. Let the temple forget who it was for. You are not here to decipher the silence. You are here to join it sleep now, where the stone forgot its purpose. Sleep in the temple that doesn't need a name. Sleep with the echo that no longer waits for an answer. The air is thin this high above sea level. It doesn't press down on your chest. It just hovers, crisp and pale, like breath held between moments. You've arrived in the Andes, where clouds gather close enough to listen and mountains lean. Together like old friends telling secrets. Far below you, but still nestled high in the world, stretches Lake Titicaca, silver and motionless, as if too ancient to ripple. Somewhere beneath this lake, where the water deepens and the light bends, lies a temple that no longer asks to be seen. It waits quietly, half buried beneath silt and centuries. And when the sun shines just right and the water stills without wind, pieces of it seem to glow back, like old dreams trying to surface that the lake doesn't boast. It reflects, and you sit on a ledge above it, where reeds rustle and birds pass, low and slow. You are far from cities, far from noise, far from the chase of anything that can't sit still. Beneath your feet, the slope descends to where the lake swallows the past. In the early 2000s, divers found stone structures down there, large platforms, steps, what may have been a road, all resting on the lake bed, beneath layers of sediment, an algae older than Inca, older than explanation. Some believe it was part of a ceremonial center built by the Tiwanaku, an ancient people who left no written language behind. Just foundations, just alignments, just the stillness of stone underwater. You imagine it, this temple that now belongs to fish and silence, built perhaps to honor the sun or the moon or something in between, built by hands that knew how to shape stone with reverence, not urgency. And when the lake rose, as lakes do, the temple didn't cry out. It let the water in. You close your eyes and hear it, a lapping, soft and steady, like someone humming in their sleep. The water doesn't hide the temple, it cradles it. You picture steps vanishing into blue, carved blocks laced with moss. Maybe there were statues, maybe offerings, maybe music once echoed here, flutes made from bone or red, played not for audience, but for sky. Now, the only listener is time, and time is very good at listening. They say the people of this land, the Amara and the Quechua, believe the lake was sacred from the beginning, that it was the birthplace of gods, the origin of creation. And maybe that's why the temple rests so peacefully below its surface. To be submerged here isn't to be forgotten, it's to return, to sink not in defeat, but in offering. You take off your shoes and step into the edge of the lake. The water is colder than you expect, but not unfriendly. It wraps your ankles like a quiet thought. The bottom is soft, muddy, and full of things that don't rise unless invited. The temple is somewhere out there, not far in miles, but centuries away, and yet you don't feel far from it. It's beneath the same sky, under the same silence. It's in the water that now touches your skin. No one rushes to excavate it. No one tries to raise it. The stones stay where they are, shaped by hands long gone, unbothered by the slow weight of sediment. Divers come and go, but the temple doesn't try to impress. It has the patience of mountains. You sit again and wrap a blanket around your shoulders. The sun begins to lower, casting the lake in gold. The clouds turn soft at the edges, like they've remembered something worth keeping to themselves. You breathe in the altitude and feel your thoughts slow, your limbs unwind. The temple never asks to be understood. It only asks to be left alone. It's a strange kind of peace, the peace of knowing you don't need to explain anything to be real. You imagine standing at the top of that submerged platform, thousands of years ago. Maybe the water was already close. Maybe someone knew it would come. Maybe they watched it rise, inch by inch, and did not panic. They did not build walls. They offered the temple instead, back to the lake, back to the world beneath. That's what you're sleeping inside now. Not a ruin, a release. Let the silt stay wrapped around the columns. Let the fish pass quietly through the doorways. Let the moonlight paint only the surface, never deeper. You do not need to reach the bottom. The temple is already inside you. Slow, sacred, and still. Sleep now, where the water holds what was never lost. Sleep beside the temple that let the lake in without resistance. Sleep with the echoes that don't need air to be heard. Asterisk, there is no sky above you yet. Only rock. You are inside a mountain, but not in darkness. Stone opens around you, tall and strange, not built upward, but carved downward, as if someone pulled a temple out of the earth by revealing what had always been hidden. You stand at the edge of Kailasa Temple, Ellora, where the mountain itself was asked to imagine God, and it did. The walls rise, but they were never stacked. The ceilings float, but no beam holds them. Everything here was chiseled from a single cliff of basalt. Slowly, precisely, without pause, over 100 years of carving from the top down, like someone drawing with gravity. And when you look closely, you see something more tender than design. You see a dream paused, mid-breath. You step deeper into the courtyard, open to the sky now. Sunlight spills in from above, washing across columns and elephants and shrines, all connected to the same bedrock. Nothing here was added. It was all taken away. Subtraction as creation. Silence chipped into shape. They say over 200,000 tons of rock were removed to make this space. Not for war, not for kings, but for devotion, dedicated to Lord Shiva, the god who creates by destroying and destroys by creating. The temple honors cycles, change, and stillness all at once, which makes sense, because this place does not feel like it was ever meant to be finished. You run your hand along a carved pillar, not smoothed by polish, but softened by centuries of time and light. Some figures look complete, elephants with raised trunks, dancers mid-spin, deities seated in quiet command. But others feel half done, as though the carver stepped away to rest and never returned. Or maybe they finished exactly what they meant to. Maybe the unfinished parts were the final prayer. You breathe in the air between statues. It smells of sun-warmed dust and something older, like cooled fire. There is no paint left, no gold, no incense smoke, just stone, clean and unhurried. And in the quiet, you begin to feel it. This temple isn't trying to impress you. It's trying to remind you that not everything must arrive to be real. Walk a little farther. The chambers lead inward, into hollowed rooms where sound moves differently. You whisper, and your voice loops back to you with a softened edge, like the walls are tucking in your words. Carvings cover every surface, scenes from myth, gods in motion, stories stacked like dreams told in stone. But some faces are missing. Some hands reach out but never touch, as if even the gods accepted interruption. And maybe that's the heart of it. This temple was not built to last forever. It was made to be attempted. Not a monument, but a moment. One long, continuous moment of effort, devotion, and surrender. You can feel that in the dust beneath your feet. You can feel it in the way no part of the temple demands attention. Yet every part holds it. You sit on the low step of a shrine carved deep into the wall. The sun shifts above, painting shadows onto stone, then letting them go. The temple breathes around you, its silence like an open hand. You think of the carvers, working by lamplight or sunlight or both, chipping, chiseling, brushing, not sculpting from imagination, but revealing what they believed was already there. This was their offering. This mountain made empty, and now it holds you. You lie back against the floor, solid and warm. Above you, the ceiling ripples with low-relief patterns, lotuses, mandalas, wheels of time. You don't need to name them. You only need to let them pass across your eyes like slow clouds. Let the unfinished corners remain unfinished. Let the gods without faces still smile. Let the chisels rest where they fell. This temple is not asking for interpretation. It is offering. You rest inside what almost became divine. Sleep now, where the mountain gave itself away. Sleep with the statues that never stood. Sleep beneath the sky carved 1 inch at a time and left open on purpose. You begin by walking along the edge of a lake that doesn't hold still. It stretches out in every direction, wide and glassy, like it wants to be sky. The surface shimmers with reflections, birds crossing overhead, clouds idling above the hills, your own face rippling back toward you. But beneath that mirror lies something older, heavier, and almost always hidden. A temple waits below, sunk not in failure, but in season. You're standing near the border of Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, where the land dips into a reservoir known as Himaquetta Lake. During most of the year, the temple sleeps beneath the water, unreachable, invisible, patient. But when the monsoon fades and the sun pulls the lake back into the sky, it appears step by step, like a memory surfacing through a dream. This is the Venugopala Swami temple, and it has moved more than once. Not walked or crumbled, but been moved, as if gently lifted and relocated by time, by flooding, by human hands. The original temple, built in the Hoysala era centuries ago, was submerged when the Krishna Rajasagara Dam was constructed in the early 1900s. The water rose slowly, like regret, and then the temple was gone. But not quite. People still remembered it. They would row out in small boats during the dry season, trying to catch a glimpse of stone steps or the edge of a sanctum, and for a few fleeting weeks each year, when the water withdrew far enough, the top of the temple would surface, sunlit and soaked, as if it had come up for air after a long meditation. It never stayed long. The rains would return. The lake would rise. The temple would vanish again. You imagine that moment now, the moment when the waterline drops low enough to reveal the first carved stone. You're standing at the edge of something sacred unfolding, not with grandeur, but with permission. There are no gates here, no welcome signs, just the quiet agreement between earth and sky. For now, you may see, the temple was eventually reconstructed on higher ground, stone by numbered stone, with care and reverence. But the version that stayed, underwater all those decades, still lingers in people's minds. The ghost temple, the one that only the lake could keep. You sit by the water's edge and let your reflection blur. Dragonflies hover nearby. Reeds move slightly, brushed by a breeze that doesn't need to go anywhere fast. The hills across the lake look like folded cloth. The clouds look like they've forgotten what hurry means. The temple isn't visible now. It's summer and the reservoir is high. But you know it's down there. You feel it the way you feel bones beneath your skin. Quiet, foundational, unseen, but true. A sanctum holding its breath. A shrine that knows how to wait. You close your eyes and picture it in full. Pillars carved with gods playing flutes. Friezes of dancers. Soft arches welcoming footsteps that haven't touched stone in years. You imagine the walls glowing under water-filtered sunlight, algae, brushing gently along the base like prayer beads, sliding between fingers. The temple is not ruined. It is simply submerged in patience. When the temple is visible, people come, photographers, pilgrims, wanderers like you. They step carefully onto its stones, speak quietly, take in the hush that clings to wet walls. They don't ask why it vanished. They don't demand it return. They just witness. And then, when the rains arrive, they let it go again. Not all sacred spaces need to be possessed. Some only need to be met halfway. You lean back onto the slope, letting the ground hold you. The lake glistens in the distance. You can't see the temple, but you know it's there. And in that knowing, something inside you settles. There's a comfort in the idea that not everything needs to be present to be real. Let the water keep the stone. Let the sanctum sleep without sound. Let the lake rise like breath and fall like forgiveness. You do not need to touch the temple. You are already resting in its rhythm. Sleep now, beside what hides without shame. Sleep near the temple that appears only when the lake allows it. Sleep with the memory that surfaces gently, then disappears before it can be broken. Asterisk, the sky above you is pale and wide, almost white, as if dawn got caught in a long breath and forgot how to finish rising. You're standing on tundra, not the lifeless kind, but the kind that waits quietly beneath snow and silence, holding warmth the way moss holds memory. There are no trees here, only low brush, windswept stones, and somewhere beneath your boots, beneath centuries of frost and silt, rests a place shaped by hands who knew how to build, not for forever, but for return. You've come to the Arctic Circle, where winter lasts longer than memory and the sun's light is both rare and sacred. This is the land of the Sami people, nomads, herders, watchers of the northern lights, and stewards of a religion that once whispered to stones, rivers, and stars. Here, the sacred was never built to rise. It was carved into the land, or marked gently upon it, temporary sanctuaries for an earth that didn't need temples as much as it needed attention. Somewhere out here, hidden beneath layers of ice for generations, a Sami altar stone, once waited. Not a grand structure, not a fortress of faith, just a single, irregular stone, set apart by shape and chosen by instinct, where offerings were left and prayers released like breath in cold air. These Seeders weren't constructed, they were recognized, honored, and then, over time, forgotten, or rather, allowed to disappear back into the snow until they were ready to be seen again. You crouch beside one now. It emerged only recently, not through excavation, but through thaw. Permafrost retreated just enough to reveal its edge. The wind uncovered its curve. No tools were used, just weather and waiting. The stone is mottled with lichen and ice crystals. A faint hollow on top suggests centuries of gifts, bones, antlers, small tokens of gratitude for a good hunt, a safe crossing, a warm fire. You run your fingers along its side. It is cold, yes, but not unwelcoming. The cold here is like a blanket with history stitched inside. It doesn't repel you. It reminds you that some warmth has to be earned, not by effort, but by slowness. The Sami believed that everything had a spirit, not just animals and trees, but stones, hills, lakes, snow. They didn't draw boundaries between sacred and ordinary. The world itself was a temple, but certain places like this stone, were entry points, not to heaven, to alignment, where the rhythm of your breath matched the wind, where the beat of your heart slowed to meet the stillness of snow. You sit, cross-legged, near the altar. The land stretches around you in soft silence. Reindeer tracks pattern the distance. A crow passes overhead without hurry. The air smells of frozen earth and sky. There is no incense, no chant, no grand doorway. Only you and this stone, and the shared stillness between you. This altar doesn't explain itself. It doesn't ask for worship. It simply listens. You close your eyes and feel what the Sami might have felt. The weight of the seasons in your chest. The slow pull of sunlight returning after long months of dark. The presence of ancestors not hovering above, but moving through. You in the air, in the ground, in the warmth slowly rising from beneath your coat. The altar never vanished. It only waited. There are dozens of these stones scattered across the north, some still buried, some eroded beyond recognition. But they are not lost. They are part of a map the land carries inside itself. And you, for a moment, are allowed to trace its outline. You place your hand gently on the top of the side. There is no lightning, no revelation, just the deep calm of something real, something not trying to be noticed. The kind of sacred that doesn't shimmer, it just is. Let the ice return when it wants to. Let the snow cover what it must. Let the altar remain unmarked on maps, but held in memory like warmth. You do not need to interpret this silence. You only need to lie back and let it hold you. Sleep now, where prayers froze into the ground and never stopped humming. Sleep near the stone that listened longer than you've been alive. Sleep in the rhythm of frost, fire, and everything in between. The air is wet before you even reach the trees. It clings to your skin like a whisper in a language you forgot you knew. You step into the forest, where the light softens into stripes, filtered through layers of canopy. The ground is spongy, with leaves. Every footstep releases the scent of moss, bark, and old rain. This isn't just a jungle. It's a memory turned green, and it's still breathing. You're in Cambodia now, and ahead of you lies the soft shape of something man-made, blurred by centuries of plant life. The Ta Temple, once a proud outpost of the Angkor Empire, now rests beneath the thick vines and strangler figs that made it their home. It hasn't collapsed. It's been gently reclaimed, as if the jungle was never trying to erase it, just to tuck it in. When you first see the temple's edge, stones arranged into a half-sunken gate, your breath slows, not out of awe, but out of respect. This place is still sacred, even if its prayers have changed form. Birds call from the high branches. A cicada hums somewhere behind you. The jungle has taken over the role of ritual here, offering sunlight. Through green leaves and the rustle of time winding through root and ruin, you walk slowly, your hands grazing the soft lichen covering ancient walls. Every surface tells a layered story, carvings of gods half covered in ivy, bas-reliefs worn thin by wind and centuries of monsoon. A face emerges from the stone, serene, almost smiling, and beside it, a root thick as your arm curls down. Like a curtain. This is not damage. This is cohabitation. The Ta Temple was built in the late 12th century under King Jayavarman VII, who dedicated it to his mother. It once housed scholars, dancers, and priests, a whole living city of reverence. But then the kingdom changed, the capital moved, the jungle grew thicker. The temple wasn't destroyed. It was simply left alone long enough to soften now. The trees hold the walls like arms. Their roots cascade over roofs and doorways like hair grown too long. You don't feel like an intruder. You feel like a guest in a place that's learned how to be both ruin and refuge. The silence here is alive. The quiet is layered with memory, with green, with everything that came and stayed and forgot and stayed anyway. You pause at a narrow hallway, partially collapsed, where the stone floor dips slightly and puddles catch the light. A sapling grows where a statue once stood. You sit near it. The temple isn't telling you to worship. It's showing you how to coexist. You imagine the people who once filled these spaces, brushing their feet on this same stone, lighting incense, chanting softly. You don't need their language to hear them. You only need the rhythm of birds and branches moving overhead in one quiet chamber. You find an altar still intact, a simple stone platform surrounded by fallen columns. A fig tree has broken through the roof above, its roots like chords in a vast instrument strung by gravity. You lie down on the warm floor. The stones are dry here, despite the air. You look up into the opening where leaves sway against the sky. The forest has built its own ceiling. This temple, more than most, has taught the world something rare, that ruins don't need fixing, that vines can be a kind of crown, that forgetting doesn't always mean losing. You listen. The jungle speaks without words, in leaffall, in rustle, in the long inhale between thunder and rain. This is a place that stayed still long enough to be softened into myth. Let the roots keep growing. Let the stone breathe moss and memory. Let the gods stay half hidden. They're closer that way. You do not need to restore this shrine. You only need to rest beside it. Sleep now in the hush between vine and vault. Sleep where the jungle learned to pray in green. Sleep beneath the branches that guard what time decided to keep. Asterisk, you come to the edge of the land where cliffs drop away and the sea begins. The sky is wider here, stretched flat like parchment, pale at the horizon and deepening slowly above. The waves don't crash so much as murmur, long, low, patient sounds, like someone humming in their sleep. The wind moves sideways, always, brushing your hair across your face, folding your coat tighter around your body. And at your feet, softened by centuries of salt and sky, sits a temple that doesn't remember what it was for. This is the temple of Poseidon at Cape Sunion, perched at the southern tip of mainland Greece. It stands in ruins now, columns half gone, roof open to the stars, but still proud in a way that doesn't need restoration. It doesn't plead for attention. It simply remains, facing the sea like it always has. You walk the path toward it slowly, gravel shifting underfoot. The marble is worn pale, bleached by the endless sun. What's left of the temple rises in clean vertical lines, like the bones of a story almost forgotten. It was built here for a reason, though no one quite agrees anymore on the full truth, to honor the god of the sea. Yes, but also to mark safe return, to guide sailors, to stand as a final farewell. Now, it stands because it stayed. The wind moves through the columns and makes a low song, tuneless but not empty. You place your hand on one of the stones, warm, a little rough, still alive in its own way. You can feel the softness at the edges where centuries of breeze and rain have worn carvings into suggestion. You sit near the base of a column, where the sun strikes the stone just right, and the sea below shimmers with a kindness that feels like memory. You wonder what the temple heard in its prime oaths, prayers, laughter, sandals, scuffing stone. Now it hears only the tide and the occasional murmur of a visitor who doesn't need to speak loudly. You don't speak at all, you just breathe. The temple is not dramatic. It's resigned in a beautiful way. It doesn't try to recover its past. It lets the questions stay unanswered. Who built the first altar? What ceremonies were held here? Why this exact spot on this rocky cliff surrounded by so much nothing? But maybe the nothing was the point. You lie down on a patch of grass, warmed by the sun and sheltered from the wind. Above you, gulls glide in lazy circles. Behind you, the ruins stand like a hand-raised knot in command, but in farewell, in front of you, the Aegean unfolds, calm and endless. You think of the sailors who once passed this place, scanning the cliffs for the white stone shining like a lighthouse of belief. You imagine them seeing it and thinking, we're almost home. And now, long after the rituals stopped and the gods fell quiet, the temple still gives off that same feeling, not awe, but arrival. Let the salt air keep softening the marble. Let the wind keep singing its old songs through broken columns. Let the temple face the sea forever, with no need to remember why. You do not need to know what was worshipped here. You only need to rest where worship once happened. Sleep now, beside the sea that never stops returning. Sleep with the wind that holds no answers, only rhythm. Sleep in the arms of a ruin that gave up remembering and found peace instead. The road to the monastery is not paved. It curves like thought, slow, meandering, occasionally disappearing under drifted sand. You travel it on foot now, your boots sinking gently into earth the color of sun-warmed bone. The horizon stretches, in every direction, wide and patient, until the land begins to rise into low hills. And there, carved gently into stone, sits a place that does not call out. It simply waits with the door open. This is the monastery of Saint Simeon, or what remains of it, above the Nile near Aswan in southern Egypt. Some call it Kubat al-Hawa, the Dome of the Wind, built in the 7th century, abandoned more than once, swallowed and uncovered again by sandstorms. It's not a place of grandeur anymore. It's a breath held between centuries, quiet and unfinished, in the way sleep never really ends. It just shifts its weight as you step through what was once a grand gate. The walls rise like soft cliffs on either side, not polished or perfect, just worn smooth by wind, like river stones left out to think. The floor beneath your feet is sand, blown in layer by layer, never swept away. The ceiling above is mostly gone, but the arches still curve inward towards sky, framing clouds like windows for prayer. You wander through the outer courtyard, passing broken columns and the soft suggestion of what might have once been stairways. This place wasn't just a church, it was a home for monks. Dozens of them once lived, studied, copied scripture, grew figs and lentils in little desert gardens. Now only the doves remain, fluttering between niches and landing silently in places that once held books. It is not sad. It is not haunted. It is inhaling. The desert moves slowly, but it never forgets. It covers, yes, but gently. This monastery was once buried nearly to its domes. Then a storm would come, shifting dunes like blankets, and it would be uncovered. Again, like something the earth wasn't ready to let go. You find a narrow stair carved into a hill, half filled with dust. You follow it slowly into the heart of the monastery. The coolness wraps around you. Light filters through cracks in the stone. You sit inside a small chapel, a space no larger than a living room, with old Coptic crosses scratched into the walls and the faint smell of dust warmed by sun. There are no relics left, no chalices, no cloth, but the stillness is whole. You hear nothing but your own breathing, and maybe the far-off brush of wind moving through a missing roof beam. This was a place for retreat, not to escape the world, but to let it go quiet, enough that something else could be heard. The monks believed in endurance, in simplicity, in waking before the sun and falling asleep to the hush of stars. Their prayers were not loud. They were rhythms, footsteps in sand, ink on parchment, hands folded in repetition. You can almost feel the echo of it, the way silence here isn't empty, but full of someone else's calm. You move again, slowly, into what was once a refectory. The long hall opens out toward the desert beyond. One wall has crumbled away entirely, giving you a clear view of the Nile far below, glittering like a ribbon stitched across the horizon. The wind blows in from the north, warm and dry, and you let it touch your face like an old song remembered without melody. This monastery never closed its doors. Not really. It just let the desert in. You lie down on the warm stone floor. The sand beneath you shifts just slightly, not enough to disturb, only enough to remind you the earth is alive. The stars above begin to show themselves, one by one, shy but steady. No one will come. No one needs to. Let the sand fill the empty corners. Let the stars mark the ceiling the roof forgot. Let the walls stay open, just wide enough for wind to pray through. You do not need to understand every carving. You only need to rest in the breath this place still holds. Sleep now, where monks once whispered their last thoughts to the night. Sleep beside the stones that folded slowly back into earth. Sleep in a doorway no one ever locked, beneath a sky no one ever finished counting. Asterisk you approach slowly, not because there's a crowd, but because there's nowhere fast to go. The path turns to soft earth as you near the edge of the marsh. Not water, exactly, not land either. It's that strange in-between where your footsteps don't echo and the trees watch without moving. The air is thick with the scent of wet soil and flowering stillness. And somewhere just ahead, hidden in the reeds and thyme, the top of a temple staircase waits to meet you. This is Vijaya Vitala Temple, or what's left of its forgotten twin, submerged in one of the lost corners of Hampi, India. Not the famous hall with the musical pillars, not the arches that still frame travelers' photos, but a quieter sibling, lesser known, folded gently into the mud and roots. Its steps, once grand, once sung about, now emerge like knuckles from a sleeping hand reaching out from the soil in slow silence. You pause before the first visible stone. It's moss-licked and sunk halfway into the ground. You wouldn't know it was part of a staircase unless someone told you. But once you see it, you begin to notice the others, a gentle, sunken rhythm, one worn stone after another leading upward or downward. It's hard to tell which anymore. The land has swallowed the bottom. The top leads nowhere you can see, and yet you climb. The mud gives way slightly beneath your soles. You step carefully, reverently, not because you expect anything to happen, but because something already has. These stones have held thousands of feet, not all at once, but over time. Pilgrims, priests, kings, dancers, children, feet bare, calloused, dusted with turmeric or monsoon rain. They walked here before you. They still do, in some way. Not physically, but in story, in memory, in the echo of footsteps heard only by the wind. You sit for a moment on the third step, the one with a crack like a vein running through it. The moss here is soft enough to touch like felt. Dragonflies hover in the warm, still air. Far away, someone plays a flute, or maybe it's a bird. But either way, the sound doesn't ask for attention. It just exists. These stairs are not just stone, they are direction, carved intent, embedded in ground that forgets and forgives all at once. They may have once led to a sanctum, a shrine, a space filled with lamps and the smell of jasmine oil. But that space is gone now, and yet the steps remain, like a sentence half spoken that still carries meaning. You move again, higher. The stairs shift beneath you. Some are sunken deeper, others broken. One is split wide enough to grow a small palm in the crack. But still you climb, not toward a destination, but toward a sense that someone else once climbed here, too. That's the thing about steps. They imply presence, not just structure, but invitation. No one builds stairs for no reason, and no one walks them unless they believe there's something at the top, even if what waits there is only stillness. The breeze thickens for a moment. A heron lifts from the edge of the marsh and vanishes into trees. You stop at the highest visible step. Beyond it, just wild grass and sun. But you can feel it. Something continues, even if your eyes can't see where. The staircase, long buried, goes on. Or maybe it ends here. It doesn't matter. What matters is the feeling of ascent, that even now, as vines grip the handrails and earth drinks the base, the stairs remember how to climb. You lie down sideways across the highest step, letting the stones support your back and the slope of mud cradle your legs. The sky leans low with gold. Fireflies begin to blink somewhere in the grass. The temple is not lost. It's just mostly underneath everything now, including you. Let the steps disappear into the soil. Let the top lead only to sky. Let the climb continue, even if only. In dreams, you do not need to reach the sanctum. You are already held in its echo. Sleep now, where steps once led thousands upward. Sleep where the mud keeps the memory warm. Sleep inside the climb that never needed an end. The street above you is alive. Cars sighing past, children calling to one another across the road. The clink of cutlery from open balconies where dinner is being served without hurry. The city breathes in thick pulses, traffic lights changing, like tides, engines stopping and starting, sandals scraping old pavement. But beneath it all, something older is waiting, not with urgency, with patience. You're in Rome, of course, the kind of city that lives in layers, where every basement is a question, and every crack in the wall could be a story trying to get back up to the light. Here, below one of the busiest intersections, near the Forum, you find stairs that no one is rushing down. They turn sharply and vanish into shadows cooled by centuries. At the bottom, the air changes. It's not musty, exactly. It's measured a stillness that holds its own shape. You've arrived at the Temple of Mithras, hidden beneath the church of San Clemente, which itself is built atop an earlier church, which was built atop an insula, which was built atop this, a shrine older than the emperors who tried to forget it. Down here, the light is soft and indirect, caught in niches or flickering from low lamps. The walls are rough with age. The air carries a faint mineral scent, like the breath of a mountain held beneath stone. Mithras was a mystery god, worshipped in secret, in silence. His followers met underground. Their rites were quiet, symbolic, cloaked in metaphor and shadow. No grand parades, no marble statues towering above, just small rooms carved in the dark, where men gathered to enact stories of light, rebirth, and loyalty, stories no one wrote down. You sit where they may have sat, your back against a curved wall that once held quiet bodies in reverent hush. The altar is still here, small, rectangular, worn smooth by offerings whose shapes are lost. A relief shows Mithras slaying a bull, the image repeated across dozens of temples from Scotland to Syria, but always underground, always low enough to be forgotten. No one knows exactly what the image meant. It was sacred. That's enough. You. Listen. The floor above you still hums faintly with the rhythm of modern Rome. Tourists, scooters, espresso machines, shoes. The city goes on without noticing what's beneath it. But down here, the temple remembers. It doesn't need sunlight to feel real. It has held its own weather, a climate of memory, cooled by time and carved into the rock. The Mithraeum isn't grand. It's not trying to impress you. There are no gold ceilings or mosaics screaming color. There is only quiet, and in that quiet, a kind of invitation, not to decode, but to be still, to become part of a room shaped entirely by belief and disappearance. You. Imagine the candles that once lit these stones, the whisper of ritual, the warmth of shared silence in a time before clocks. You imagine the moment the temple was filled for the last time, the last chant, the last footstep, the last echo, then dust, then darkness, then silence again for centuries, until the church above was built, then another, then roads, and now people drink cappuccino over a mystery god who once held a room in his hands and said nothing. You lie down along the wall, feeling its cold strength behind your shoulders. The ceiling presses low but not heavy. It feels like being held. No fear, no urgency, just stone, silence, and the sense that this place was never meant to shout. Let the city keep growing. Above, let the footsteps pass unknowing. Let the temple stay quiet and whole beneath all the noise. You do not need to uncover everything. You only need to rest beneath what never asked to be found. Sleep now, in the hollow where voices once echoed soft. Sleep beneath the stone that remembers you without your name. Sleep where old gods listened without needing to be seen. The air here is thick with stillness, but not the kind that makes you feel unwelcome. It's the kind of stillness that follows something enormous, as if the mountain itself just exhaled, long and slow, and now waits again, watching. The earth beneath your feet is rough, porous, darkened by fire. A landscape of cooled breath and broken stone. And there, surrounded by the remnants of molten sky, lies what's left of a temple that refused to disappear completely. This is Sarin, the Pompeii of the Americas, in the valley of El Salvador. It was a village once, not far from a volcano, that slept restlessly. Sometime around 600 CE, the Loma caldera erupted, not violently, not in flame, but in ash, in a thick, smothering rain of pumice that came without warning and preserved everything it touched. No bodies were found. People fled, but the temple remained, buried whole under 15 feet of volcanic dust, forgotten by the jungle, by time, and even by story. You crouch beside the raised platform of what archaeologists call a communal, ceremonial structure, a soft phrase for something built with quiet purpose. It isn't grand. It doesn't rise in layers or reach for the sky. It sits low to the ground, intimate, made of adobe and love. The thatched roof is long gone, but the shape remains, a space where offerings were once placed, rituals shared, breath exchanged in the name of something greater than harvest or rain. Something like connection, something like stillness itself. As you step inside the low room, dust muffles your every sound. The air is cool now, dry and faintly sweet, filtered through centuries of volcanic memory. There are bowls still resting in corners, tools on shelves, even a sleeping mat near the altar. You feel like you've walked into a pause, not a ruin, as if the ceremony just ended and the people have stepped out for a moment. But it's been over. 1,400 years. You sit where they might have sat. Your back touches the same wall. The ash that once buried this temple didn't destroy it. It preserved its breath, like a lung mid-inhale, like a prayer still hanging in the air. The people here believed in cycles of sun, of earth, of time. Life flowed in circles, not lines. They built temples with that in mind, not as monuments, but as anchors. Places where something eternal could touch the everyday without needing to make a sound. Outside the temple, the outlines of the village are still clear. Homes, gardens, pathways made with footsteps and repetition. The volcano did not erase them. It simply covered them in forgetting. Until one day, in the 1970s, a bulldozer pushed too deep and revealed what the mountain had held so gently for so long, and now you're here, listening. There is no sky visible from this temple, only the soft grey light filtered through the excavation. Canopy, like dusk, that never quite finishes arriving. But you don't need the sun. You don't need fire. You just need the weight of time softened into dust. You just need the silence of a place that held sacredness without shouting. You lie down beside the old offering platform, where someone once left maize or cacao or a flower. The ground is warm beneath the ash, not from lava, but from memory. You breathe in, and the room seems to breathe with you. Let the volcano sleep again. Let the jungle press close. Let the ash carry the shape of reverence in every grain. You do not need to light a fire. You are already resting in its afterglow. Sleep now, where the mountain kissed the temple without destroying it. Sleep inside the hush that held on for centuries. Sleep where smoke once rose, but left behind something holy. The current moves slow here, like a thought mid-formation. The river doesn't rush or sparkle, it breathes. Wide, brown, and thick with silt. It stretches past rice fields and villages, and bends like it remembers something, maybe everything. On its southern curve, near the borderlands of Bengal and Orissa, a cluster of stones rises quietly from the shallows. Not a ruin in the usual sense, a memory emerging. A temple returned to Erdot. This is the submerged temple of Malkangiri, or what little we call it now. No one is quite sure of its original name. No texts mention it. It wasn't meant to be grand, but it was carved with care, a shrine built on the edge of a river that didn't stay obedient. Centuries ago, the earth shifted. Maybe the land slid. Maybe the river swelled too far. The foundation gave way, and the temple slipped down, not all at once, but slowly enough that the walls cracked without crumbling, the roof dipped without collapsing. Water crept in, wrapped around it like a patient vine, and then held it for centuries. It wasn't lost, it was simply submerged in time. You reach it by boat, gliding over the surface like a dragonfly unsure of landing. The sun presses down warm and wide. Fishermen wave from the banks. The river smells like clay and slow things. As you near the stones, their shape becomes clearer. Not just random rocks, but a deliberate structure. An entryway just visible above the waterline. A carving of a lotus petal. A single niche, still holding the base of what was once an idol. You step onto a half-drowned slab. The surface is slick with moss and river algae. Your feet don't sink, but they remember the pull. The temple sits low, knees deep in its own history, walls leaning like shoulders that held too much. You run your hand along one of the columns. It's cool, water-stained and unbothered, as if being forgotten was just another way of resting. The temple doesn't try to be noticed. It doesn't rise like others do. It simply endures, partially above the water now, since a rare dry season pulled the level low enough for its head to show again. The villagers nearby have known about it for generations. They never called it missing. They just said it waits, inside. You duck under a stone beam and step into a square chamber where water still pools around the edges. Light slants in through a broken ceiling, catching motes that float like incense ash. The inner sanctum smells of wet stone and something faintly floral, maybe jasmine offered by someone recently, maybe just the echo of old rituals soaked into the walls. You imagine the priest who once lit lamps here, barefoot, quiet, watching. The flames shiver in the river breeze. You imagine the last ritual before the water rose, the last bell, the last whisper, the last step out, and then silence. You sit where the idol might have stood, not in arrogance, but in wonder. The stones don't mind. They're not sacred because of what they hold. They're sacred because of how they've been held. You lie, down along the stone floor, one arm touching a groove carved by hands long vanished. The air is warm here, moist, thick with memory. A bird calls in the reeds outside. A splash breaks the stillness, then fades again. The river surrounds you, but it doesn't claim you. Not today. Let the water rise and fall. Let the stones soak and settle. Let the temple breathe slowly in the rhythm of its rediscovery. You do not need to rebuild what stood. You are already resting in what remained. Sleep now, where rivers remember more than we ask. Sleep with the current that carries no urgency. Sleep in the space between submersion and return. Asterisk, there is no sign pointing you here. No path beaten by tourists. No placard with a name you can pronounce or misremember. The village nearby does not mention it, not out of secrecy, but because they no longer know it's there. A place once sacred is now simply part of the land. A rise in the grass, a strange curve of stone beneath fig trees. And beneath all that, buried in the quiet folds of the hills, waits a temple with no name. Left behind not in destruction, but in mutual forgetting, somewhere in central Anatolia, tucked between the eroded teeth of forgotten valleys and the soft grey spines of dry riverbeds, this temple remains. No records, no stories, not even myths. It wasn't destroyed. It just stopped being remembered. You stumble upon it by accident. A low stone wall peeking from beneath roots, a corner that doesn't match the earth around it. You brush aside a tuft of dry grass and find a carving. Not a letter, not a language, just a curve, a symbol. Maybe it meant something once, maybe it still does. But there's no one left to translate. It doesn't need translating anymore. You step inside. The doorway is narrow, but the space within opens wider than it seems it should. You're inside the earth now, inside a space carved not upward but downward, like someone wanted the temple to be close to the ground, close to something buried even deeper. The walls are smooth in places, rough in others, like they were, carved with human hands and then reshaped by weather, as if nature helped finish what the builders started. Niches line the sides, some empty, some filled with stones placed in patterns you can't decipher. You run your fingers over one of them. A circle made of 7 smaller circles, all worn to softness. It's not familiar. It doesn't need to be. You sit near what might have been an altar. There's no raised platform, no grand sculpture, just a hollow in the floor, filled with wind-blown dust and seeds from a tree outside. You wonder if it was always this humble, or if time has gently erased the symbols the way the sea smooths. Glass, either way, it doesn't feel empty. It feels settled. You try to imagine the people who came here, not who they worshipped, not what rituals they performed, but how they walked. Slowly, perhaps, silently, you imagine their footsteps echoing softly in this low room, their shadows passing briefly over the stones. They must have spoken words here, words to the air, to each other, to something vast and invisible. But now, those words are gone, too. This isn't tragedy, it's peace. There is a relief in not being remembered, in not having to hold meaning anymore. The temple doesn't resist its obscurity. It leans into it. It lets the roots grow through its roof. It lets the rain drip without defense. It lets you sit here without explanation. You lie down in the center. The stone surprisingly warm from the sun filtering through a hole above. Dust drifts lazily in a shaft of light, and you feel no urge to move. The world outside is still turning. Languages being spoken, names being given, but here, in this forgotten place, the absence of name becomes its own kind of blessing. Let the temple remain unknown. Let the past slip gently into the earth. Let the silence speak more clearly than any inscription. You do not need to understand where you are. You are already within the memory of being held. Sleep now, where no name needs remembering. Sleep where footsteps fade, but presence lingers. Sleep in the hush of a temple that forgot itself, so you wouldn't have to. Asterisk, and now you've wandered through temples that once reached for the sky and then let go. You've stood where pilgrims once whispered, where offerings once flickered, where prayers were carved into stones so softly they let the wind finish them. Each place you visited tonight wasn't lost, just quiet, buried, blurred, weathered, left behind, not because they were unworthy, but because even sacred things grow tired of being seen. Let that be permission now, to rest without needing to explain yourself, to sink into stillness like a temple into sand, to let your edges blur, your history soften, your breath lengthen into sleep. You are not forgotten. You are simply resting. Good night. Let the earth hold you now, just like it held them. Sleep.